What's up, guys? It is Friday, November 4th. It's 9:06 a.m. and this is the crypto newsletter. And we're specifically going to cover this news with Circle, USDC, and Blackrock and go into some past articles, past things that I remember seeing or hearing and putting the connections together because we're starting to get a clearer picture as to how this likely end game is going to unfold and how it's kind of likely that USDC is looking like it may become the US's CBDC or used in some kind of two-tiered way in a sort of kind of manner. But you guys are going to be interested in this because it's very, very big what was announced yesterday, and I haven't seen anybody talk about it yet to this point. Circle begins putting reserves into new Blackrock fund. The assets backing Circle's Internet Financials USDC will finish moving into an SEC regulated money market fund early next year. This was yesterday night, and it was updated this morning about an hour ago. Circle has begun moving the reserves for its USDC stablecoin into a dedicated fund set up by Blackrock and registered with the US SEC, and the company disclosed that Thursday. So the Circle Reserve Fund, government money market fund managed by Blackrock Advisors, has been in the works for months after Blackrock initially sought to register it in May. Circle will be its only eligible investor. It's the only one eligible to be a part of this reserve fund. And the stablecoin issuer has already started putting its reserves there, expecting it to be fully transitioned by the end of March. What else is happening by the end of March? Europe, ISO 222 Big Bang migration. I believe the end of March, start of April, UK chats, Big Bang ISO 222 migration. And then you got Swift, March 2023, end of March, we got going live with the ISO 222 Big Bang migration. So to me, there's something behind the scenes that we're trying to put the pieces together right now, but it's just coincidental that they're expecting to be fully transitioned by the end of March alongside with everything else that's happening during that time period. This is the wrapper for the USDC reserve that brings benefits of that wrapper to the USDC and the ecosystem. All of the company's short-term treasury assets will be phased into the fund through a cash reserve. About 20% of the total will still be held in partner banks because it will allow for customers to more easily redeem USDC around the clock. But that's a temporary measure because the ultimate goal is for Blackrock to apply in time to get the fund into the Federal Reserve's reverse repo program. Such funds are usually granted that access, so Fox Green said he hopes to see the cash portion of Circle's reserve eventually held at the Federal Reserve, USDC being held on the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve to be a part of the Federal Reserve's reverse repo program. And we'll get into that after, but let's keep going. These efforts will improve the risk profile and oversight in the disclosures around the USDC reserve. And it's backed by $44.1 billion in short-term US government bonds. And the assets will be held at Bank of New York Mellon. And we know the connections between Ripple and New York Mellon, according to Circle, where the fund will be subject to regulation under the Investment Company Act 1940. Circle has previously begun a financial relationship with Blackrock, the world's biggest asset manager, when the firm invested in Circle's funding round announced in April. Stablecoin issuers have been eagerly awaiting legal guardrails in the U.S., but legislation that would set up the rules failed to reach the finish line this year. Lawmakers in the House of Financial Services Committee expect to get back to their bill in the next session, though it could still be months away. Whatever the outcome, policymakers have generally agreed that stablecoins operating in the U.S. will need to be entirely backed by reserves such as U.S. Treasury bonds. Okay, so now let's dive into this because let's see how all this is connected. Blackrock, this was July 29, 2020. Blackrock conflicts managed extremely carefully, Fed Powell says. Any potential conflicts that may arise from having investment giant Blackrock Inc. buy corporate bonds and commercial mortgages on behalf of the Federal Reserve are being managed extremely carefully. Basically, the Federal Reserve has enlisted Blackrock to manage their buying program of corporate bonds and commercial mortgages on behalf of the Federal Reserve. Blackrock, which manages about $7 trillion in assets, was hired by the Fed in March to steer tens of billions of dollars in bond purchases as part of the U.S. central bank's effort to stabilize the bond market amid the economic turmoil caused by COVID. All right, the grand finale, how we know it's going to play out is a bond market implosion. The whole system locks up. It freezes. Bam. We need liquidity. Where's the liquidity? Oh, on-demand liquidity. Ripple XRP. Bam. Right then and there. You have the transition happen, right? BlackRock is involved in this transition heavily. The Federal Reserve knows what's going to go down. So if this is all new to you, you guys got to go over to stargate-ventures.com. Link will be in the bio. Get your free crypto masterclass accelerator. It's going to get you caught up to speed with where we were at before in history and these technological advancements and changes and the history of money, and take you to where we're at right now and this position that we're in. I mean, we're close to the grand finale finish line here. So if you don't know where we've been, you don't really know where we are in the timeline now, and you don't know how this is going to unfold and how you can prepare for it and execute on it, then go over to stargate-ventures.com, link in the bio, get your free crypto masterclass accelerator. I haven't done this before, and I want to do it because I need to get people to get this information in a timely manner. Once it's done, it's done. I can't do anything about it at that point, but we still have time. So if you haven't already, stargate-ventures.com, free crypto masterclass accelerator, and link in the bio as well too. You'll get access to the Discord, our Stargate server. Would love to see you guys join in there. We have the automated crypto signals from Stargate software in here for all these different coins, XRP, XLM, all the good ones, right? So come join the Discord, say what up. I'll say what up back. Now let's keep going, because BlackRock, which manages so BlackRock's own ETFs accounted for a large share of corporate bond ETFs. So can we skip that? BlackRock is just our agent, Powell said at his virtual news conference following the close of the Fed's two-day meeting in response to a reporter's question on the handling of potential conflicts of interest. We make the policy decisions in conjunction with our colleagues, and they just execute our plans. So BlackRock, the Federal Reserve, they're working in tandem. And then keep in mind too, we've heard, everybody's seen probably Jim Rickards on Twitter. I read all of his books years ago, and he laid out this very clear for us that the BlackRock is going to be labeled a systematically important financial institution. They're going to be able to freeze BlackRock's assets and a lot of other asset managers' money and tie it up when this bond implosion happens. And while everything is frozen, they can just flip the switch and reset the system to be based on distributed ledger technology, digital assets, etc. It's how it's going to roll down. I'm going to show you the proof, because this definitely has something fishy along with it. This is huge news. We're talking about USDC being held by the Federal Reserve on their balance sheets and used within the reverse repo program. We know that BlackRock is an investor in Circle. BlackRock is an investor in Coinbase, or has partnered with Coinbase to offer digital asset exposure to their clients. And we know how tied up BlackRock is, and they're the biggest asset manager in the world. So with those things that we know, and then the Federal Reserve and BlackRock working together, it's like a trifecta right now that's being kind of worked on in the background, but it falls in line with the end goal, and that's to implement this new system. All right, so now we're going to dive into the summary prospectus that BlackRock had filed about the Circle Reserve Fund. So let's look into it and see if we can find anything here. So nothing out of the ordinary as far as this prospectus goes, but let's keep going here. So overnight reverse repurchase agreement. So what is that? So when the Federal Reserve conducts an overnight reverse repo agreement, it sells the security to an eligible counterparty and simultaneously agrees to buy the security back the next day. This transaction does not affect the size. Okay, so like they would have this fund and they would use the USDC fund as a form of getting that overnight liquidity faster. So the Federal Reserve would be selling the USDC, and these banks would be buying it, and then the Federal Reserve would buy it back the next day, sort of thing is what they're saying here. So that's what the Circle Reserve Fund would be used for, backed by BlackRock. And then if we go into this right here, I did this video back February 10th. BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, $10 trillion under management, is offering crypto trading. And we know that Coinbase was selected by BlackRock to provide Aladdin clients access to crypto trading in custody via Coinbase Prime. So Coinbase and BlackRock create new access points for institutional crypto adoption by connecting Coinbase Prime and Aladdin. And over the past few years, Coinbase has played a central role in developing and strengthening crypto markets as the safest, most trusted bridge in the crypto economy. And then now they're partnering with BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, and they're providing hundreds of institutions with trillions and trillions of dollars to now have direct crypto exposure. So this is huge news. And if we're taking all these connections with Coinbase, BlackRock, USDC, now we can go into ICE 9 and how this is going to unfold. This was a video I did back 2 months ago, but it's a heater. It's a heater. So let's watch. We're going to pick through clips during this video. I'll get you the best ones out of here, and then we're going to end this off. So let me start. And the start of this video is going to be a explainer of ICE 9, how this whole financial system freezes. So let's watch it.
Have been planning, waiting. Dreams of domination, of total control have been passed down. Their plan has changed hands countless times, but its core goal has remained unchanged, nurtured through generations, from Caesar to Charlemagne, from Napoleon to Roosevelt, and down to the present day, and the first generation with the technology to carry that plan out. When they unleash it on an unsuspecting public, there will be no time to prepare, no time to react. In just 48 hours, the elites will freeze bank and brokerage accounts worldwide. Millions of Americans will lose access to their own money, in some cases, forever. And the elites will have seized control over our money and our very lives. But one of their most respected members has decided to break ranks. He has agreed to expose their plan today in full. What he reveals over the next few minutes could save your family from sudden financial ruin. As you're about to see, it could one day save your life.
So that was a little summary about the freeze, but if you want to check out the full video, Jim Rickards, ICE 9, The Coming Big Freeze, The Daily Reckoning, Road to Ruin. And I read that back in his book, like 2019, and all the things that are playing out are lining up for that to be the case. Now, let's see. While that aged well, BlackRock CEO Larry Fink calls Bitcoin an index of money laundering in 2017, 2021, why BlackRock is bullish on blockchain but not Bitcoin. 2022, BlackRock picks Coinbase to provide clients with direct Bitcoin exposure. So don't listen to what they say, watch what they're doing behind the scenes, right? So let's look at this, because now the United Nations, this is a global effort. So United Nations and the UN agenda. Let's watch this. This is President Bush Sr. Good amount of time ago, maybe like 30, 40 years, something like that. So let's see.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law. We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
So that new world order is obviously on our doorstep. You can even crazy. Just that was spooky. So now we got this, even spookier.
Thanks also to the leadership of China in terms of fighting the pandemic, in terms of we have now a window of opportunity to create this global reset which we all need. Global reset is necessary because we have seen that our policies which we pursued before the coronavirus struck us, that those policies do not create the necessary inclusion of society necessary for harmonious societal development. And they do not create the sustainability of what we are doing. Just think of the global warming, how fast it is developing in the opposite, into the negative direction. So we have a great opportunity, like we had after World War II, to have in some way a new beginning in our global cooperation, in globalization, in managing our global affairs.
So what happened after World War II? So that was the Bretton Woods Agreement, where the dollar was placed as the world reserve currency. It was backed by gold, all that good stuff. So now what are they calling for, right? And you heard him, he said a small window of opportunity, right? So now they're calling for a new Bretton Woods moment, the IMF. So let's pull that video up.
Monetary policy in a country, or as it is the case in the Eurozone, within the Eurozone, is defined by the central bank, the Fed, the European Central Bank. And this monetary policy applies to the territory, the jurisdiction. How could central bank digital currency cross borders and go into another jurisdiction? Would that create a risk of currency substitution? So everybody says, I want ECB's CBDC. I want and these are unresolved issues, but it doesn't mean they cannot be resolved. This is why from the fund we are advocating to think about this world of digital money as a global public good. And in a recent discussion in Zurich, where we both were, what we advocated for is to have a public platform. So when protocols are agreed, this public platform can connect different CBDCs. There can be interoperability, the same way you would transfer euros from one country to another. You do it using CBDCs.
And I want to start by saying I am also on the board of Ripple, which is XRP, cryptocurrency. And I want to start by saying I am also on the board of Ripple, which is XRP, cryptocurrency. And yes, it is my name on the lower left-hand side of U.S. money. So out of the approximately $2 trillion of U.S. currency in circulation worldwide, my name is approximately on 1.8 trillion. So I can honestly say that no one has made more money than I have.
CBDC. So when you have a digital dollar and you have a digital, real, or digital pound, you obviously need to have some way to interact cross-border. Yeah. So I think the BIS call this a multi-CBDC model. One of the ideas is you use a sort of a neutral bridge currency to go from one to the other, similar to the model I explained earlier, where with our on-demand liquidity. But the core offering really is not XRP. There's no XRP involved. It's the native token is the CBDC.
There's other broad brushes with regard to this as well, as to when something is a note, called the Reeves test. As to when something is a note.
What's a note? Note. Like what's a note? Note.
As to when something is a note, called the Reeves test.
So another Bretton Woods moment taking shape. So let's keep going here because there's more to this. So let's see what they're talking about with the United Nations and everything that we're hearing from these clips.
Global coordinated bank policy where City of London and legacy Amsterdam banks, legacy, Paris and Amsterdam banks, all of that's ending. And we're having a new system, and they want that system. They still want to control that system, and they want to do that via the CBDCs, and then rolling up global government to the UN and the IMF being the world's central bank. That's what they want, and they're trying to crash the entire system and force the IMF to bail out the world, and then thereby extension own everything.
And so
that's their plan.
And so in terms of the Fed's plan, right? So you speak about you make sense of the decision to raise interest rates in this light. What are they shooting for then? At what point do you think they'll be satisfied? At what point are they trying to cause a bank mass? They're just trying to get past some point where
they're engineering a full-on sovereign debt crisis in Europe, a full-on banking crisis in Europe, and a political destruction of the European Union.
To the point,
and the Russians want the same thing. From the other side, the Russians are using the energy play. On the other side, the Fed's pulling back on liquidity. The Europe is stuck in the middle. They're a rag doll, and they're both saying pull, and they're going to just tear the arms off of Europe, and it's going to fall.
And so eventually you're going to you assume we'll get to the point where, Europe is so broken they can't pretend to try and rein in the US, and they have to come to the US and say, without any leverage, and basically just take the US's terms. That's what you think the Fed are trying to engineer. Basically, they're trying to get them past.
I think you're overthinking it. Okay, it's really simple. The US wants their sovereignty back. We're not sovereign in the global scheme of things. We still have the Constitution. Yeah. Davos is trying to destroy our sovereignty by breaking, and they're going to try and break us apart. Their next move after this happens is they're going to try and get New York and California to secede from the Union. That's what comes next. These people aren't going to stop until they're bankrupted, and you bankrupt them by destroying the Eurodollar system.
Yeah,
that's how you kill them. Otherwise they're just caught.
The guy was turning it, but that's what they're trying to do. Now we got Jim Rickards, same guy from the first kind of clip from this video. He says, I'm in the gold room in the Mount Washington Hotel in Bretton Woods. This is where the Bretton Woods Agreement was signed. That's the original table and chairs unchanged since 1944. We are closer to a new system where gold again plays a role than most realize. So everything is kind of lining up at the same time. And this was literally 7 days ago? So BlackRock launches spot Bitcoin private trust for its institutional clients. We know this. And then we're giving the keys of the government to BlackRock. Let's hear it.
We're giving the keys of government to the likes of BlackRock. I mean, BlackRock is choosing which assets the Federal Reserve buys, despite the fact that black of assets on the planet. That is the most insane conflict with the European Central Bank. So we've reached that stage where it's really difficult to see where a central bank ends and BlackRock begins, or to see where the FDA ends and Pfizer begins. I don't see any sign in any government of any movement towards rectifying this, or even pausing it. And that to me tells me, if we are coming towards a major crisis, our government is not on our side in any shape or form. Whether or not it's they've got a big agenda, I mean, fundamentally, they are not being honest to us. And they are clearly in the pockets of companies that have very different interests. I mean, just looking at the World Economic Forum, an organization that whose founder is proud to have infiltrated governments of democratic countries around the world. I mean, that organization, I think if you look at the top 10 largest market cap firms in the United States, 8 of them are sponsors of the World Economic Forum. And in Europe, it's 18 out of 20. All of the major too big to fail banks are putting money into the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum has spent decades subverting government.
Yeah. This reality that we're facing is scary on a lot of fronts, for sure.
So it's like we're leading up to that grand finale. And then we watch that. So here we go, another one. Here we go.
Let's move on to your presentation at this conference that you'll be making later in the day. The theme is the demise of the Federal Reserve. Right. Pretty strong words. What do you mean by that?
It is. It's something that the media hasn't caught on to yet, but it is the chain reaction of what is going on right now will lead to this. And basically, I'll be talking about how The debt that the government is taking on, coupled with the Federal Reserve's balance sheet that keeps ballooning, coupled with interest rates that they just want to keep lower, will eventually create a situation, a collapse in the system, where you will no longer see the Fed in its current form. It'll be kind of abolished, if you will. And that's going to happen strictly because the people will demand it. And they're going to go over it. It relates to cryptocurrency because eventually you're going to see a switch over to this kind of blockchain, crypto, digital currencies that will eventually be the future.
Okay, so you've outlined your thesis. Walk us through the mechanics of how this abolishment, this transition will happen, and what new form the Federal Reserve can take.
Yeah, so the chain of events started actually in 1977 with the dual mandate. So as soon as the Fed got put in the position of having to monitor unemployment plus inflation, that was the beginning of the end for the Federal Reserve. The reason it was is because basically, if you want to keep unemployment low at all times, which is what the Fed wants to do, you have to constantly stimulate the economy, right? By printing money and keeping interest rates low. Well, you can't be the parent that spoils the child and then also be the one that's hard-nosed and says, well, we're going to raise interest rates because inflation's getting out of control. You can't do that. And that was the beginning of the chain reaction that I'll talk about in the presentation. After the collapse, you'll see a new body come up that'll be in charge of the digital currency, whatever it may be, and eventually you'll see this digital currency probably being used all over the world, even as the reserve currency.
Same similar kind of storyline we're seeing right now, the same narrative, right? And this has been talked about for 5-6 years now. So like, this is what really got me tied into this, was knowing all this stuff and ahead of time, and kind of like every year is like, is this the year? Is this the year? And now more than ever, it seems like we're getting close to that climax grand finale moment. So here's another one right here.
What was interesting is that Blackrock at the time published some of the material describing the plan. And if you look at what they are doing, which I would describe as sort of a consolidation of what I have called the financial coup d'etat, the actions taken through the healthcare legal and regulatory system that started in March 2020 were simply part of the going direct reset. And what you watched was an injection of significant money into, I would oversimplify as Wall Street. At the same time, the healthcare rules shut down the Main Street economy. And so you have a shutdown. The little guys are basically shut down by disaster capitalism working through the healthcare system, whereas the big money players get massive amounts of money to go out and engage in global sweepstake, which is buy everything cheap. One of the reasons they can do this is BlackRock is an asset manager who manages, it's one of the largest holders of index funds and retirement savings. And so a lot of the money they're swinging around are individual money or working through pension funds, but that have major positions in every company in America. So if you look at the pharmaceuticals, if you look at all the companies, all the tech companies, BlackRock again and again and again has a big position. So while they're managing all these companies, then the Fed does something absolutely unprecedented. In my world as a financial person, I cannot tell you how shocking it was. They basically turned over operational asset management functions for the Fed and the New York Fed to BlackRock. They just simply delegated. Mm-hmm. This is the equivalent of, imagine if the Department of Justice called you up and said, Whitney, we want you to start a company and we're going to turn over different aspects of enforcement for the United States to your company. I mean, it was an extraordinary and very shocking thing. In the meantime, Larry Fink, who's the head of BlackRock, is basically running around the financial world pontificating about social.
Same story. So these are all the companies that BlackRock owns. So we can see, like she was just saying, all the biggest: Amazon, PayPal, Walmart, Microsoft, Exxon, Verizon, Qualcomm, BNY Mellon, Bank of America, Comcast, Ford, Facebook, Netflix. Like they're really tied up with all the big heads here. So like BlackRock now is in charge of, the government, like with the financials for that too. So BlackRock, this whole kind of narrative and the story, how it's going to end, the grand finale, I think we know how. That Ice 9 freeze through BlackRock, panic on the streets, system resets, bam, cryptos and blockchains are just like boom, just like that. It will be a flip of the switch moment. She had just gotten into how that was one of the craziest things she saw when she heard the announcement with BlackRock taking over the reins and the Federal Reserve handing it over to BlackRock. There's complete collusion going on between these institutions here, and that writing's on the wall. We've seen all the connections just right there. So when I see something like this, Circle has begun moving the reserves for its USDC stablecoin into a dedicated fund set up by BlackRock, registered with the SEC, with the goal for the Fed to hold that fund on their balance sheet and use it for the Federal Reserve's reverse repo program, and it will be fully transitioned by the end of March, with all these other dates happening by the end of March too. I start to scratch my head and wonder what's truly going on here. So that's it for this crypto newsletter. It's on BlackRock, it's on Circle, it's on CBDCs, the Financial Freeze. And if you haven't already, go to stargate-ventures.com. Link will be in the bio. Get your free crypto masterclass accelerator. Get your free crypto masterclass accelerator and get prepared for what's about to come, because TikTok, you can smell it. It's coming soon, and I want to make sure people are prepared beforehand. So link in the bio for that. Free crypto masterclass accelerator. Just enter in your information right here, and we'll send it right to your inbox, and you'll be able to access it right away. Along with that, get access to the Discord, free access. We have all these automated crypto signals, buy and sells, XRP, XLM, XDC, VeChain, Theta, all these ones, buys and sells set up with Stargate's custom software that you'll be able to utilize and get these signals real time on demand. So link will be in the bio to join the Discord for that. Looking forward to seeing you guys over there. So I'll see you guys in the next video.